Tonight on Bridge City News, Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman stopped by our studio recently to chat about what is being done to combat the ongoing drug crisis in our city. The Lethbridge Chamber announces a big event which will bring some big names to our city, including the founder of Kijiji. And the humble Broncos played their first game since the devastating bus crash last April, which killed 16 and injured 13 others. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Entrepreneurs and business people in southern Alberta will have a chance to win 2 flight tickets courtesy of WestJet Airlines. The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce's Fall Business Expo will headline Robert Palmer, WestJet's Manager of Public Affairs, who will enter all attendees into the draw. Palmer will speak alongside other notable business leaders who are coming to town for the special event.
We actually have an amazing lineup this year. So we have Janet Bannister, who is the founder of Kijiji, Kelly Lindsay, an Indigenous leader and entrepreneur. We have Sandra Huchelak, who is the Managing Director of the Corporate Social Responsibility and Community Investment at ATB. And we're extremely proud of this lineup to continue to talk about not only what Southern Alberta has currently, but where our future vision is and how much stronger we could be. I think especially the Southern Alberta region has a great opportunity for strength in building diversity through our economy and making our community one of the strongest that it can be actually across Canada, not just Alberta. So this lineup of speakers is really empowering entrepreneurs, young leaders, I think diversity and looking at all the different options that exist and really trying to promote that through our community and making Alberta strong.
The event runs October 2nd and 3rd at the Sandman Signature Lethbridge Lodge. Seniors in Fort Macleod rejoiced today with the grand opening of their new Pioneer Lodge. Dignitaries included Calgary Shaw MLA Graham Sucha and Fort Macleod Mayor Brent Fader, who were on hand for the unveiling.
It's about having the right projects that are the right size, built at the right times for our integral communities. And so even with the recent schools that we retrofitted a couple years back, the focus was making sure that the service was proper for the community. Instead of using cookie cutter style ways to build things in this province, we want to make sure that things are built for the right communities in the right areas.
If you were in the old building, you'd see it pretty quick. The hallways were very narrow, the rooms were small. There was no fire suppression, it wasn't safe. It was a cozy looking building and it served its purpose, but it was aged. And it was either new or huge amounts of dollars renovating something that in the end you're not going to get much more out of. So I believe the government's made the right decision and in redoing the entire building.
The facility was part of the province's $160 million commitment to modernize and renovate rural lodges across Alberta. Sunday's annual Terry Fox Run will see funds raised for cancer research. As Josie Foster explains, schools in southern Alberta have a unique opportunity thanks to one special local resident.
How many schools have you done so far this year?
This will be my 3rd so far.
Okay.
But I got another 9 to do so far.
The late Canadian hero who has become the face of cancer research in Canada, Terry Fox, was named after his uncle. Now 79 years old, Mr. Fox Sr. lives in North Lethbridge.
Mr. Fox is about to hit the stage here at Our Lady of the Assumption School in South Lethbridge. It's one of 11 stops for him this month, 3 less than his all-time record of 14.
Please give him a warm welcome.
I guess I go up. I used to babysit Terry when he was little. And I said, if I said to Terry, Terry, you can't do this or you can't do that. Oh, he would try. Terry always had determination. You know how far he ran? Over 5,000 kilometers. 143 days straight he ran. And he told me, he said, I was feeling so low. And I looked. There's some kids, they're walking around, no hair. They were bald.
Kids suffer through this, through cancer, and suffer through and go through all these things and getting a cure for them.
We asked the students to bring in a toonie for Terry, and that donation will go to cancer research, and it gives the children a connection, a feeling that they are doing something to help contribute to help our community.
After presenting his well-rehearsed speech this afternoon, Mr. Fox joined the children, living his message of a healthy lifestyle.
Do I look good? You look great. Yeah. You can be whatever you want to be in life. You just got to be determined. And that's what my nephew taught me, determination. You can do whatever you want if you put your mind to it and try your darndest.
For Bridge City News, I'm Josie Foster.
With the moisture we've received lately, Lethbridge Fire Department is lifting the fire ban for the city's River Valley. It was put in place July 17th during a hot and dry summer. Fire officials remind residents to use clean, dry wood and to ensure all fires are completely out before leaving. Officials also want us to be extra cautious when disposing of smoking materials. We have an update now on the Boundary Wildfire, which has been impacting Waterton Lakes National Park. Thanks to the rain, cooler temperatures, and the efforts of firefighters, the blaze is now 14% contained. It is still 1,100 hectares in size. As of 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, the Bertha Lake Trail and Bertha Bay backcountry campgrounds will reopen. Waterton Lakes National Park and the Waterton Town Site are also open. Canadian and U.S. firefighters have been battling the Boundary Wildfire since August the 23rd. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman stopped by our studio recently. Now, we chatted about many issues impacting our city, including the opioid crisis and why it is such a problem in Lethbridge.
What we've seen is the drug issue escalate double every year. And what's happened is cheap drugs have flooded the market. Low-income people get hooked on drugs. That's a big portion of it, is drugs are given away by the dealers. They get people addicted, and then people become dependent on it.
Catch my entire interview with Mayor Spearman as he discusses how the city is tackling drugs and crime coming up in the second half of our show. The City of Calgary has decided to spike the idea of setting up 4 public areas where cannabis users can light up when pot becomes legal next month. The city decided against it due to public backlash. In some cases, people put up signs on some of the proposed areas saying, "We'd rather not," and "Don't do it." More than 1,800 people gave the city feedback on the designated pot consumption site proposal. A 30-year-old Blairmore man has been charged with arson in connection with a Crowsnest Pass fire, which occurred in August. The fire began on August the 9th and scorched 4 hectares by the Crowsnest Pass Hospital and east towards Blairmore. Fortunately, no people were injured or property was damaged as a result of the blaze. Mark Daniel Foucault was arrested earlier this month. He's in custody and scheduled to appear in Pincher Creek Court on September the 25th. Alberta's tourism minister says people will see an architectural showpiece when the new Royal Alberta Museum opens in downtown Edmonton next month. The new $376 million, 40,000 square foot museum will be the biggest of its kind in Western Canada. It will feature more than 5,300 objects on display dedicated to human history. It will also have a children's area and a bug gallery. Admission will be free for the first 6 days when the museum opens its doors on October the 3rd. Canadian Pacific says it is prepared to move this year's Canadian grain crop to market. Following a roundtable discussion with federal ministers yesterday, CP says it will move the crop in close collaboration with its customers and the broader supply chain. The railway says it has a target of spotting 5,500 hopper cars per week until the Port of Thunder Bay closes for the winter. Now, after that, CP says it plans to target about 4,000 cars per week. The NDP in Saskatchewan won the Regina Northeast by-election. Jens Peterson captured 53% of the votes and took the seat that was previously held by former finance minister and Saskatchewan party member Kevin Doherty. Doherty resigned from cabinet last fall and left the public life altogether to accept a job with a consulting firm in Alberta. Peterson is a Regina lawyer who previously served as president of the Saskatchewan NDP and once ran for the party leadership. The results from the by-election means the Saskatchewan party now has 48 seats in the legislature compared to the NDP's 13. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Saskatoon yesterday. The federal Liberals were in town for a caucus meeting. Moe called on Ottawa to back down on its carbon pricing plan. Both Trudeau and Environment Minister Catherine McKenna said that's not going to happen. McKenna says Saskatchewan has the highest per capita greenhouse gas emissions in the country. The Humboldt Broncos played their first hockey game since the devastating bus crash last April, which killed 16 and injured 13 others. The final was 2-1 for the Nipawin Hawks. Crash survivor Caleb Dahlgren says playing hockey again is very important for the team.
The organization would like to continue, and so they are continuing on in this situation. And I know I want the team to continue with the whole season and honor those that pass away and can't play, and honor the 29 that were involved in the accident. And so I think it's great that they're continuing on.
You know, it's bittersweet. It's hard because of the tragedy that happened and the people who lost their loved ones, and especially their sons who played, to be watching other players playing when theirs aren't able to play. I keep seeing hockey heals, and it is so true. It really does. And getting back into what would be considered normal, and I know it's the phrase new normal, but that's exactly what it is. Healing is not staying where you are today. It's moving forward.
North Carolina's police chief is warning any stragglers who refuse to evacuate as Hurricane Florence approaches are making a dangerous choice.
We had a mandatory evacuation beginning at 8 o'clock yesterday morning. We asked all our residents to leave. We did give them 12 hours to go ahead and board up their windows or do whatever they needed to do to secure their homes. 8 p.m. last evening, we made it mandatory that everybody had to leave. And throughout the night, we've been making sure that people have left and that things are secure. Everybody was evacuated out at 8 p.m. We know we do have some stragglers. A few incidents did happen overnight, but really overall it was a very smooth process of evacuation. The biggest thing, we wanted to express our appreciation to everybody, including our residents, that got up and left and obeyed the evacuation order. This is something that's always very difficult because, just like them, I had to leave my home, and I know how hard it is, so we really appreciate their cooperation in that matter.
Residents from South Carolina, meanwhile, have taken refuge in a shelter as they wait for Hurricane Florence to come through. One evacuee says he hopes the massive storm is gentle to their neighborhood when it blows through.
Mandatory evacuation a couple of days ago, so we started to seek shelter. We showed up here, and we've been here for today will be third day. It seems to be that everybody's sticking together. I mean, different communities in here, but everybody's, getting along, laughing, doing the best we can to spend the time, till it passes. Be gentle. Just be gentle. It's not something new to us, but we really, right now is not a good time to have a big catastrophe on our hands.
Tropical storm Olivia brought heavy rains and flooding to Maui and Molokai, two of Hawaii's major islands. Some homes on Maui were evacuated.
So they won't let me pass. Roads closed early up the way because the road collapsed. And down here it's flooded. So
You wanted to go swimming, right?
I did want to go swimming. Let's go get our stand-up paddles board, baby, and we'll go for a little paddle down the road.
Why don't we have Jen with the paddle board? Like this.
Should we go get the kayak and rescue people?
It was on this date that U.S. President George W. Bush takes responsibility for the federal response to Hurricane Katrina. Attica prison uprising ends, and rapper Tupac Shakur dies. This is Today in History for September the 13th.
September 13th, 1993. In Washington, a step in the quest for peace in the Mideast. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat shake hands at the White House. That happens after they sign an accord in which Israel grants limited autonomy to the Palestinians. 2005.
To the extent that the federal government didn't fully do its job right, I take responsibility.
For the first time, President George W. Bush takes responsibility for the federal government's mistakes in its response to Hurricane Katrina. He suggests the calamity raises broader questions about the government's ability to handle both natural disasters and terror attacks. 1971. In upstate New York, police and guards stormed the Attica Correctional Facility, ending a prison uprising. The 4-day ordeal, including the final assault on the prison, claims a total of 43 lives. 1998.
And I will be present to bar the entrance of any Negro who attempts to enroll at the University of Alabama.
Former Alabama Governor George Wallace dies in the state capital, Montgomery, at the age of 79. In his later years, Wallace, who also ran for president, renounced his one-time segregationist views. And 1996.
The sick and psychotic society, somebody save me. Addicted to drama, so even mama couldn't raise me.
Rapper Tupac Shakur dies at a Las Vegas hospital at age 25. It happened 6 days after Shakur was wounded in a drive-by shooting that remains unsolved. Today in History, September 13th, Tim McGuire, The Associated Press.
A 1972 painting by British artist David Hockney is expected to sell for more than $80 million US at auction in November. That would easily break the world record for a work by a living artist sold at auction. Christie says Portrait of an Artist or A Pool with Two Figures is the best of Hockney's paintings from both the historical and market perspectives. It's amazing color and beautiful artwork. Cooler and overcast today and more moisture is in the forecast tonight. I'll have complete weather details coming up shortly. Lots of clouds and cooler temperatures today as we hovered around the freezing mark. Tonight, a chance of showers or even flurries developing and a low near 1. Tomorrow, mainly cloudy and warming up to 14. Overcast and 14 as well on Saturday. Sunday, periods of rain developing and the mercury dropping to 6. Monday, the warmer temperatures return with a high near 14 expected. Tuesday, a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 13. Checking our almanac, the average high for this time of year is 20 degrees and an average low of 5. The highest temperature of this date was recorded in 1996 at 31 degrees, and the record low was -5 in 1970. Sunrise was at 7:04, sunset at 7:50. Let's have a look at how tomorrow's shaping up across the country. A highway alert is in effect due to the snow on the Coquihalla Highway between Merritt and Kamloops today. As for Vancouver, expect rain and a high of 15 degrees tomorrow. Victoria will also have showers and 15. Calgary will be mostly cloudy and 5 on Friday. Edmonton, which dealt with its first snow of the season, will see a partly cloudy sky and a high of 7 tomorrow. A lot warmer in Saskatchewan. Regina is expecting rain, but a high near 15. Saskatoon will also have rain, but only reach 9. Winnipeg will be mainly cloudy and 18. Over in the central part of the country, Toronto will be mainly cloudy and 26. Ottawa, lots of sunshine and 27. Montreal will be even hotter, clear sky and 29 expected on Friday. Fredericton, New Brunswick will be mainly sunny and 28. Halifax, Nova Scotia will also have a clear sky and 26. Charlottetown, PEI will have sunshine at 24. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, it'll be mainly cloudy and should get up to 12 degrees tomorrow. Apple has unveiled 3 new iPhones, including its biggest and most expensive model yet. The company is seeking to widen the product's appeal amid slowing sales.
And as you can see, it's as big a display as the plus-size phone, but in a smaller design. And so many customers love that about that. Big display, easy, comfortable to hold in your hand.
I think Apple really fills a gap here with the larger screen iPhone, the S Max, which is very important, especially to compete with devices like, for example, from Samsung, the Note 9 that just came out. So, and people were really looking for a larger screen phone, and I think it will definitely drive sales in China.
Dollarama is reporting higher second quarter earnings as sales have increased 6.9% to $868.5 million. It says it earned $141.8 million or 43 cents per diluted share in the quarter. That is up 38 cents from a year ago. Analysts had expected a profit of 44 cents per share for the quarter. Dollarama says comparable store sales growth fell to 2.6% from 6.1% a year ago due to a decision to minimize price increases. There's a growing interest in changing the method for harvesting canola from swathing to straight cutting. The program manager for Applied Ag Services with the Prairie Agricultural Machinery Institute says this harvesting method has the potential for higher yields. Nathan Gregg says although straight cutting canola has been a preferred method in Europe for years, it is just picking up speed here in Canada. A museum in Claresholm, Alberta is putting on a Women in Agriculture exhibit. The Claresholm Museum's display will include a bust of Louise McKinney, one of the so-called famous 5 women who led the suffrage movement in Canada. McKinney was the first woman to be elected in Canada, winning a seat in the Alberta provincial election in 1917. The head of the United Farmers of Alberta, Carol Kitchen, says the exhibit will open next year. Now here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, following a roundtable discussion with federal ministers yesterday, CP Rail says it will begin moving crop again. The railway says it has a target of spotting 5,500 hopper cars per week until the Port of Thunder Bay closes for the winter. After that, CP says it plans to target about 4,000 cars per week. When you see news happening, drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's top stories, check out our full newscast online at bridgecitynews.ca. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman stopped by our studio recently to discuss what the city is doing to combat both the drug and crime problem in our city. Watch that full interview next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Come out for some family fun to the 12th Annual Pig and Pumpkin Festival, Saturday, September 15th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Wilson Middle School. This community festival will feature carnival games, bouncy castles, food booths, a craft show, and much more. All proceeds will go towards the Wilson Middle School breakfast program. For more information, email stella.r@shaw.ca. The 38th Annual Lethbridge Terry Fox Community Run is taking place Sunday, September 16th. Everyone is to meet at the Kiwanis Picnic Shelter at Henderson Lake with registration beginning at 11 a.m. The run at 12 p.m., followed by a barbecue. There's no entry fee to participate. Come with your family and pets to walk, run, rollerblade, or cycle. For more information, email lethbridgeterryfoxrun@gmail.com or go online to terryfox.ca/terryfoxrun/Lethbridge. The 29th Annual Giant Pumpkin Festival and Auction in support of the Children's Wish Foundation is taking place Saturday, September 29th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Greenhaven Garden Center. Come out and enjoy face painting, wagon rides, a petting zoo, plus a live and silent auction, and much more. Currently, they're seeking sponsorships, auction donations, and volunteers to help make this day a success. For more information, contact Jamie at 403-795-4339. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
At Bridge City News, we'd like to invite community leaders to join us here in studio. And today, we have the pleasure of welcoming back Mayor Chris Spearman, Mayor of Lethbridge. Welcome back to BCN, Mayor.
Thank you, Hal. Happy to be here.
Okay, let's start it right off. We've got the Memorial Cup 2020. We've got the bid in for Lethbridge here. The Canes had a great run last year, 3 rounds. How good is it looking for the city?
I think it's looking really good. I'd like to commend the board of the Hurricanes and really the management. When you think back 3 years, the team was struggling, and how well they've done in the last couple of years, gone 3 rounds into the playoffs each of the last 2 years. It's exciting. You know, we've had the Lethbridge Broncos here for 12 years. We've had the Hurricanes here for 31 years. And in 2020, it'll be 45 years we've had a franchise in the city of Lethbridge. And we're the only team in the bidding process that hasn't previously hosted the Memorial Cup. So wow. I think it's our turn.
You know, I mean, Calgary's right now bidding on the 2026 Winter Olympics, and the head Nancy's been talking about the big bucks that'll roll in, which will also cost big bucks too, over $5 billion. What kind of money would that mean for the city of Lethbridge hosting a Memorial Cup?
It's about showcasing the city as well as the money. So I think the total budget for it to be hosted is in the range of about $4 million, and you know, the city's contributing just over $1 million. So that's where we're at.
Okay, let's chat a bit about jobs now. Recent stats came out showing the Canadian economy actually lost 52,000 jobs. But here in Lethbridge, it's kind of a different story, isn't it?
It is. Well, we have a more diversified economy. It's agriculture, it's food-based. Everybody needs food. I tell people the future of the world economy really is food, and I think we're well positioned in the city of Lethbridge. So I think food will be the new oil. The number of people and the number of countries producing food continues to diminish, but the world population continues to increase. And what we need to do in our area is produce foods for different tastes throughout the world. So we're working on the Western Protein Initiative, and certainly some of our food manufacturers, if we can produce high protein content foods for export, I think we'll do very well. So we need to make sure that we're producing the types of foods that people throughout the world will eat, not just a North American diet.
And speaking of foods too, we've got Cavendish Farms, $360 million expansion project. Yep. It's going to come online, creating some jobs here. Any other new businesses potentially coming into town?
There's always some irons in the fire, and I can't really disclose
Come
what
on,
those are.
you can do
Yeah.
that just
No, I
between
can't?
you, me, and all our viewers.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But certainly our strength is food processing. We've got an agricultural research center in this area, 20 food producing industries specifically in the city of Lethbridge in the industrial park. About 200 businesses in the area depend on food production related. And then it's the core of our economy. So we also have the college and the university who are providing expertise as well. So we're well positioned going forward to produce unique types of food, and as people's tastes evolve, to produce things that are non-allergenic, foods with high vegetable content as people move into non-meat diets. So looking at those specialty areas, that'll be a tremendous future market for industries in the city of Lethbridge and in southwestern Alberta.
Now, speaking of industry as well, Mayor Spearman, how about the cannabis industry is going to be taking off like gangbusters? Recreational use marijuana becomes legal October 17th, and we have some businesses moving into town as well, right?
There are some businesses that are looking at producing greenhouse marijuana, recreational marijuana. There's many also big investments in Medicine Hat and in Leduc, Alberta, and we'll have to see how that shakes out. And they'll have to develop specialty markets and specialty products again to stay alive. It looks like it's going to be a very competitive environment.
Now, how about bylaws? Have you thought about bylaws where people can and cannot light up within the city?
Well, think of it in terms of the same way as smoking, and think about it as enforcement, so there's going to be social pressures as well, and the city will provide guidelines, and they will very much reflect what the same ones as for smoking. We don't want people to be offending people. We don't want it close to where kids are, those types of things. So we're setting up our bylaws in the city to address that, the public parks and things like that. We don't want people smoking there. In essence, we want people doing it in their own homes. Now, speaking of public parks, there's been a lot of controversy, of course, of dirty needles being found in parks around the city, close to schools, elementary schools as well. It's been a real issue, a contentious issue here with the opioid crisis. How's that looking now? Well, it's a huge challenge, not only in Lethbridge, but in cities throughout Western Canada, and we're trying to deal with it as best as we can. Our role at the city is community safety and trying to keep on top of it. We have to respect the fact that we don't have jurisdiction over things like clean needle distribution policies, and those things are the realm of Alberta Health and Health Canada. And what we're doing is those programs exist in other communities as well, and have existed in Lethbridge for years. But what we really have is a drug problem. And the drug problem has escalated every year for the last 3 years. Back in 2014, we weren't thinking about this, but 2015, 16, 17, what we've seen is the drug issue escalate double every year. And what's happened is cheap drugs have flooded the market. Low-income people get hooked on drugs. That's a big portion of it, is drugs are given away by the dealers. They get people addicted, and then people become dependent on it. So it's not like alcohol years ago where people could get money and buy alcohol. Now people are trading property to get drugs. And of course that's causing an escalating petty crime rate. We're seeing break-ins and thefts and those types of things, and people using property to acquire drugs. So some significant and very serious social issues are evolving, and what this has shown to us, the establishment of the supervised consumption site basically creates a hamster wheel where drug users go in, but we don't have the services to get people rehabilitated. So what we need is safe supported housing, what we need is a detox center, we need an intox center, and we need to get people in a safe, sobering process so that they can kick the addiction and have the supports that are needed.
So have you applied for funding then, maybe provincial,
Yes, we have.
federal funding?
We have
Where's
applied
the stand
for,
now?
we're waiting for approvals, and we've been applying for 3 years for intox, detox, and safe sobering, and now we're getting our supported housing applications ready for when the federal funding is available at the end of October. But we continue to pressure the provincial government to say, the city of Lethbridge was identified in the 2015 mental health study as lacking in these services. And we need to have the intox and the detox and the safe sobering, safe recovery. Otherwise, these people will never be never have opportunity. When addicts need to have referrals when they're ready. On the day that they're ready, we need to be able to refer them. And what's happening is we don't have the facilities in the city to refer them to. And then there are waiting times in Fort Macleod and in Calgary. And places like Calgary have the same problem we have, escalating drug use and more people in a queue to get access services. So our drug users will have difficulty accessing rehabilitative services unless we have them here in the city of Lethbridge.
Now, some of our viewers were expressing real concern in regards to Arches, the safe consumption and injection site, that the idea is to bring the drug addicts to the safe injection site to be able to offer counseling, a way out, and try and help them. But a lot of our viewers are saying, well, then why are Arches staff going out to the library handing out needles and other places? That doesn't really work. You want to try and bring the addicts to Arches. Has that been addressed? Has that been discussed at all?
Yep. The outreach program was terminated in June voluntarily by Arches. Okay. So, recognizing criticism in the community, a clean needle program is designed to limit the spread of diseases like HIV and Hep C, but certainly the perception that they were handing out needles was creating some issues, so they voluntarily terminated that. We do want people coming into the supervised consumption site, and right now the usage is between 13,000 and 15,000 a month. It's sort of in that range. The supervised consumption site has only been open since the end of February, and of course diverting that usage from the community into the supervised consumption site is a good thing. We wouldn't want that high level of usage out in the community. We have to recognize that people are getting needles from sources other than Arches, clean needles, and that's a challenge for us. We're right now gathering the data on what's being distributed by Arches and what is being distributed elsewhere. The needle distribution is actually down substantially from 2017 by Arches, and the needle recovery is substantially up, so that's needles returned to Arches. So that's a good thing. In terms of needles distributed within the city of Lethbridge, the needles distributed by Arches are down in around about 13,000 a month now, down from about 36,000 a year ago, and 1/3 of those 13,000 are going to users who live outside of the city of Lethbridge. But needle debris is still a problem, and public safety is still important to the city of Lethbridge. So we've implemented 4 different programs to address needle debris, and those include more needle boxes in the community, expanded use by city workers or sweeps by city workers, expanded sweeps by Arches, expanded role of the clean sweep crew. So we've implemented all of those to address public safety in the community.
Okay, we talked about needle boxes. Let's talk about blue boxes now.
Yep.
Curbside recycling. I was living in Southern Ontario for many years. We had the composter, we had the blue boxes out. Everything was quite nice. You know, your plastics, your recyclables. I come here, everybody throws everything in the garbage. But there's a pilot project which is apparently doing well. People are responding, about 77%, I guess. Yep. And so when can we look forward to seeing full-time curbside recycling throughout the city of Lethbridge?
We're hoping March of 2019 we'll be able to implement it, and so the Blue Box program will roll out citywide, and of course we have to build the facility to do the sorting, so people will be putting all the recyclables in the Blue Box, and of course there's an education program that goes with that, which ones are truly recyclable, which plastics are truly recyclable, and which ones can be handled by the material recovery facility, the MRF. So it's exciting that we'll be moving to the Blue Box, and hopefully we'll also soon be moving to something like organics recycling as well.
Yeah, the composter, absolutely. Okay, now let's talk a bit about the problems we had last year when it came to the amount of snow. We got a lot of snow here in southwestern Alberta, including Lethbridge. A couple of times, I got to tell you, Mayor, I had a heck of a time getting out of my driveway onto the street because they're not being plowed. These local residential streets are not being plowed. Is it because people are saying, I don't want the extra money on my taxes, you know, save me the money and I'll just plow through the snow myself? Is there talk about, outside of the main drags, the main thoroughfares, of plowing some of the residential streets?
No, there isn't. And certainly that would be
Thanks for asking. Right?
That's a budget issue, and certainly
why is there? Because you just rely on the Chinooks. You want to save the taxpayers' money. I mean, why
yeah, there would be a substantial cost. So the money that we're putting into snow clearing every year, about $6 or $7 million, what that would effectively do if we had to plow 10 times as much roadway, of course, then we'd have to see that go up accordingly. So I don't think anybody wants that kind of a tax increase. For every $15 million, certainly we I'm thinking about capital costs, but certainly when we increase our operating costs substantially, people are complaining about it. Taxes are an issue in this city, and I'll be honest about that. We need to understand how we spend our tax money. We're about to go through a consultative budget process.
I was going to ask you about that, yes.
And
for the next 4 years, right?
Yeah, people need to understand how their money is being spent. And people often say, well, I pay taxes, I want my road plowed, but really what you're paying your taxes for is things like police services, for fire and ambulance, and a number of other services that we provide, the debt on our recreational facilities, those types of things, road maintenance, and the portion that you pay for snow clearing is a very small portion of the budget.
And let's talk a bit about the public consultations you're looking for, the input as to how to spend the municipal dollars. 3 sessions are coming up, I guess. Next Wednesday's the first one.
Yep.
At the NMAX Center Lounge, and then 3 more taking place, I guess, at CASA on the 26th of September.
Yep.
What are you anticipating? Like a big turnout? Where?
We usually don't get a big turnout. We're lucky to get 25 or 30 people a night, and that we wonder if people really care. So we'd like to see more involvement. We will provide the option for people to participate online, so they can do it on their own time if they can't come to the meetings. The value of coming to the meetings is that you'll get to meet department heads and subject matter experts. And so if you have a question about why money's spent in certain ways, you can certainly ask them and get the answer right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So,
now, the recent census that came out said there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people living in the west end of Lethbridge. Yep. Highest density. Are we going to see a Walmart superstore at the west side of Lethbridge?
Well, that would always be a corporate decision. Now, of course...
have you reached out to them at all? Have you talked to them?
No, we haven't. No? We really allow those things to become like private sector decisions, and we don't lobby on behalf of specific companies and specific brands. So if we asked Walmart to locate on the west side, maybe Canadian Tire would say, hey, why you preferring them? So
right.
So what we want to do is allow each corporation to make their own decision. Of course, it's no secret there are some services that are missing on the west side, and astute business people would say, wow, there's almost half the population of
Lethbridge. There's a need here.
Yeah, lives on the west side of Lethbridge. Yeah. Why don't we have a lumber store?
Right.
Why don't we have
a superstore?
Why don't we have clothing stores in West Lethbridge?
Exactly,
so
yeah.
if people were astute business people, recognizing that 50% of the population lives over there and might prefer services and merchandise closer to them, they would make those decisions. But the city doesn't pick winners and losers, or doesn't encourage specific companies to locate.
Winners, that's another business that could set up. But anyway,
yeah, okay.
I digress. Now, speaking of business, though, Mayor Spearman, business owners I've chatted with in and around Arches are pretty irate. They're pretty upset the fact that they feel a lot of their customers feel intimidated and they don't come into their stores anymore because of the drug users, the drug addicts hanging around Arches. So their businesses are suffering. So what do you say to those business owners? Have you talked to them?
Actually, I did attend what we call a good neighbor meeting last week, and I've also gone and visited businesses that had individual complaints. So I've tried to deal with it head on. My suggestion is we shouldn't be broadcasting to the community if we've got an issue in an area. There are appropriate ways of dealing with it. So one of the things we have done is increase the security in the area. What we're doing, those good neighbor meetings are intended to identify issues and ways that we can respond to the concerns of businesses. We'd much rather work collaboratively with the organizations in the community. And certainly some businesses are telling us that they would rather contact us one-on-one and have issues dealt with individually than tell the whole community, I've got a problem at my business.
Right. Mayor Chris Spearman, thanks a lot for joining me in studio again.
You're welcome.
It often seems that the world today is a more dangerous place for kids than when I grew up. There's an ongoing debate as to how to raise our kids either in a sheltered manner or to give them some freedom, something that has been labeled free-range parenting. Is it reckless or the responsible thing to do? Joining me now from New York City is Lenore Skenazy. She's the mom who lives in New York. You may remember reading about her controversial decision to let her then 9-year-old son take the New York City subway home alone, which became a national story and prompted massive media attention. She was dubbed America's worst mom. She has since started a movement known as Free Range Kids and is president of the nonprofit group Let Grow. Welcome to Bridge City News, Lenore.
Well, thank you, Hal. Thanks.
Now, you're not actually America's worst mom, are you?
I guess it depends on who you ask.
Now, can you
I
share
don't
a
think so.
real-life example of what is happening where police or child services have stepped in to apprehend kids because of walking or maybe playing on their own?
Yeah, what they're apprehending is the parents. I'll give you an amazing example. A woman named Maria in Connecticut came home very late one night because she was next to her dying aunt. So she didn't get home until 5 in the morning. The next morning, she oversleeps and her son wakes up. He's 8 years old. He doesn't want to wake his mom, gets himself his breakfast, gets his backpack together, starts walking to school because he missed the bus. And somebody sees him outside, and it's so unusual to see a child on his own these days that somebody calls 911 and says, there's a kid out there, hurry, come over. The police race over, they pick up the kid. What happened? He explains his mom overslept. They drive him to school, they turn around, they come back to her house, bang on the door. Are you Maria? Yes. Is that your son who was out there? Oh, I guess so. I'm sorry, overslept. And she says that the cop said to her, you are despicable. Your son was walking himself to school. They put her in handcuffs. They threw her in the cop car. They took her to jail. You can see her, profile, her mugshot online if you look up Maria Hasenkali. And she was booked for negligence and contributing to the danger, or whatever the word is, of a minor simply because an 8-year-old had the gumption to walk himself to school. That's nothing that I want to see any parent go through again.
So how many states actually have laws in place as to the age a child can be left on their own or walking to school on their own?
Well, interestingly, most of them don't. Most of them leave something very ambiguous, like nobody can be allowed out on their own in any dangerous circumstance. And then it also becomes who decides what's dangerous, statistics or hysteria. And in these cases where parents get arrested for letting their kids walk home from the park or play in their backyard even, or walk to school on their own, wait briefly in the car a couple of minutes while mom gets a Starbucks or picks up the rotisserie chicken. When it's left to the state, oftentimes it goes against the parent, even though the parent loves the child and has made a rational decision that is no less safe than driving them. I mean, driving kids is the number one way kids die, and yet we don't arrest parents for driving their kids to the dentist, but we arrest them for letting them play in the park. Doesn't make sense.
When I was a kid, I used to walk to and from elementary school all the time, 6-7 blocks, mind you, going back to the 70s. Is society maybe a much more dangerous place today? That's why authorities and the states are a little more concerned?
It feels more dangerous today. And you ask most people, they say, just isn't like the old days, which is true. Nothing is like the old days. But in terms of actual crime statistics, crime today is lower. In America, we're at a 50-year low. I think you're at about a 25-year low. And of course, our lows are still your highs. So you guys have like no crime. And what was interesting to me is that when our parents let us play outside in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, we were actually in more danger than kids are today. In my country, we're back to the crime rate of 1963. We're back to the crime rate of when gas was 29 cents a gallon.
So what is the age demographic or age group that the state says, yeah, it's okay to let your kid walk to and from school? 12, 13 perhaps?
That
14?
seems really high to me. 12 and 13, I mean, that was the age that kids used to start babysitting, and kids had paper routes at 9, 10, 11 years old when they had to get up at like 4 in the morning. With you guys, it was Arctic temperatures up there, and get on their bikes and go through the neighborhood as dawn is finally coming up. And so to say 12 or 13, thank goodness there aren't many hard and fast ages of what age is literally legal to let your kid outside, except for in America there too. In Maryland, the age is officially 8, which I think seems pretty reasonable. In Illinois, the state I'm originally from, it's crazy. It's 14. 14 is like you're legally allowed to walk outside and get married. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
So what are the most common reasons given for not allowing kids to be out on their own?
Well, like we were just talking about, it feels like times are much more dangerous because when my mom was raising me, there wasn't the 24-hour news cycle bringing you the worst stories from any corner of the globe. But I think the real reason today, aside from just the media saturation and the obsession with danger, we only think of kids in terms of danger. Could this hurt them? What are they going to do, see, eat, encounter, lick, wear, hear? I mean, we think about everything in terms of them being in grave danger, even drinking from a plastic cup. But the real difference I'm starting to think now is that when my mom let me walk to school, which she did at age 5, because we all did that, my crossing guard was 10. Nobody thought that was crazy. she didn't worry starting at 8:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. Oh my God, I haven't heard from her. How is she? I haven't gotten a text. I can't see where she is. She doesn't have her phone on. Where is she? I can't GPS her. So she had no choice but to sort of let go or let grow. And nowadays, thanks to all this technology that is supposedly giving us peace of mind, it's doing the opposite. And now, the second you don't see your kid on the map, or you don't get a text from them, or the school doesn't alert you that your child got there safely. I mean, there are RFID tags that kids wear onto the bus. The bus says, the child is on the bus. The child is on the bus. It almost feels like any nanosecond that you're not in touch with your kid, you're supposed to feel anxiety. And you do, because the nanosecond before you were in touch. So I think this ability to have omniscience and feel omnipresent and omnipotent in the kids' lives is driving parents crazy with fear.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the bus. I understand that the Rhode Island legislature considered a bill that would have made it a crime for a school bus to drop off a kid under the, grade 7 without adult waiting. Now, that same state also considered banning recess if the temperature dropped below the freezing mark. Are we coddling our kids a little too much, Lenore? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I'm sure that the legislators who proposed these laws thought that they were doing it for the safety of our precious children. That's always how it's couched. But not only is it coddling kids to think that they can't handle anything under freezing or can't walk 4 houses home from the bus until they're 12 or 13, but think what it's doing to the parents, and usually the moms. It's saying, you are a bad mom. You are potentially a negligent and arrestable mom for not standing at the bus stop every afternoon. Why don't you just quit your job and for age 5 to age 12, just stand at that bus stop every afternoon, waiting from 3 to 3:30, walk them the 4 blocks home or 4 houses home, and then get them a snack, because they can't possibly do that either. I mean, we are really rewriting the job of parent, even as we're rewriting what it means to be a child. I mean, one of the things that most of us remember who are parents today is how much we loved our childhood, because we'd get on our bikes and we'd ride around and we'd find a friend and we'd make up a game and we'd go to the library and we'd get an ice cream, or you'd go to the beach or you'd go to the park. And to say that all those things are too dangerous for today's kids when the crime rate is lower than when we were growing up is to actually infringe upon the rights of those children to be part of the world. I mean, we're saying we're so afraid of kidnappers. We're kidnapping them. We are putting them under lock and key in the home and saying, this is the only place that you're safe. And by the way, your mother should quit her job and watch over you.
Yeah, you need to allow the kids room to grow, definitely, and make their own mistakes and learn from them and just grow as people. Now, but what are your thoughts on parents leaving a child inside of a vehicle for a short period of time, maybe to quickly run into the store for 5 or 10 minutes? Where should the boundaries lie there?
I think we've become overly concerned about seeing a child waiting in a car and forgetting that we all waited in cars when we were little. The truth of the matter is that every year there are some tragedies. Some children die in cars. They're forgotten there. The kids die in an average of 4.6 hours waiting in the car. So arresting a mom for letting her kid wait 4.6 minutes while she picks up the Starbucks or gets the Tylenol because the kid is sick is not going to bring back the children who are forgotten. So my advice is always, if you see a child waiting, asleep in the car and you're in the IBM parking lot, break the window open, call 911, do whatever you can, because that's a child who's clearly been forgotten. If you see a child waiting in a car and they're sleeping and there's somebody in the dry cleaning place getting some shirts, or if you're in front of a pizza parlor and somebody's waving to the kid saying pepperoni, assume that that's fine. And if you're worried, be a really good Samaritan. Don't call 911 and open a criminal case on that family. Wait there and make sure that the mom or dad is coming back. That's a good Samaritan. The other one is a KGB.
Now, Lenore, does it make a difference if the child lives in a smaller town or a rural setting compared to the large urban centers?
Not from what I've seen. I get letters from people from literally all over the country and many from your country too, saying that, I live in a small town. How come I was just investigated for letting one mom lived in a small Mississippi town, and she was investigated 3 times for letting her kid ride his bike, like in front of her house, and then letting her older son go to the library. Like, that's terrible. And then I live in New York City, and twice the cops called me because my kid was riding at age 10 on the Long Island Railroad, which is a very popular railroad that goes out to the suburbs to meet a friend. So it feels like the feeling of danger is inflated in both places, and really kids have always grown up in all these different kinds of places, and whether you were in the country and you milked the cows, and then you hopped on your bike, or you're in the city and you didn't milk cow, but you hopped on the subway. You're a product of your environment. You should be part of it.
So what are the pros of, let's say, letting a 10-year-old babysit a younger sibling? Is it giving him more responsibility, a sense of accomplishment, perhaps, and confidence?
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you the story about once I was giving a speech at a school, and one of the teachers wanted to tell me a story about when she was just 7 years old. Their family dog ran away, and the parents ran after it, and they left her home with her baby brother. And it got to be a while, and finally she thought, well, I got to feed him, and she fed him, and then it was still, the parents were still there, not there, and neither was the dog. And so she changed his diaper, and she felt this feeling of not only accomplishment, but that her parents trusted her enough with this responsibility and with their darling other child, as well as herself. She thinks that's why she became a teacher. And one of the things we really want from our parents is not just their love, but that they believe in us, that they think that we don't need constant doing and helping and prodding and hovering from them. And if parents are with their kids all the time, the kids don't get that sense that the parents believe in them, and the parents don't get the joy of knowing that their kids are competent and are blossoming. All they know is that I better be there, I better help. And so it's not great for either generation, and it really hampers them both. The parents can't go and live their lives. The kid can't rise to any occasion because the parent is always there handling it. I call it concierge parenting. It's like, oh, honey, I'll handle it. It's like, well, concierges are for people from out of town who can't figure something out. But childhood is when you're supposed to be growing.
Now, would you agree that a lot of it boils down to the child? Some mature faster than others and have maybe greater or lesser abilities to be on their own? So one size doesn't really fit all, right?
While I would say one size doesn't fit all, I feel that's a little bit of a cop-out, because somehow around the world, all the 7-year-olds are walking to school. Somehow in Japan, all the 5-year-olds are walking to school, and that's the slow kids and the fast kids and the spacey kids and the ADHD kids. So sure, there are some kids with actual, difficulties or delays, but for the most part, your kids can do what you did at their age.
What kind of issues can arise with helicopter parenting, like you said, going over the top of the kids all the time? Yeah. Maybe sheltering them a little too much.
Well, I don't like calling it helicopter parenting, because if you're in a society where you can get arrested because your child happened to be, brave and smart and strong enough to walk to school on his own, you don't have a choice but to helicopter. So it's a helicoptering society. It's a society that's always telling us the dangers, the very remote dangers that could happen to your kid, and then chastising you for not thinking that way first. So given that that is what society is sort of foisting upon us, particularly upon moms, what are the difficulties? Well, the difficulties are that the way you get brave and you get street smart and you learn what's risky and what's not is by making your way. And if you don't get a chance to do any of these things, like get lost or fall off your bike and have to make your way home, those are real milestones in child development, in anyone's development. We all remember a time when something screwed up really horrible and we had to come to our senses and hold ourselves together and make something work. And, none of us would be who we are today if we hadn't had some of those bad things happen to us. And so by taking all the bad things out of our kids' lives, which means just sort of everyday life, you're taking the good things out too. You're taking out the foundations of maturity, bravery. When kids play together on their own without a coach telling them absolutely, you're playing this, this is your team and this is your position and this is when you go and you have to bring the snack next Tuesday. When kids are making up their own games and playing with each other and deciding is the ball in or out, then they get all these social skills too that we're all worried about with older, with kids as they get to their 20s and 30s. We're a little worried about this generation feeling sensitive and fragile because we've been treating them as hypersensitive and extremely fragile. They're not.
So we only have a couple of moments left here, Lenore, but what would you say to those parents that really want their 10-year-old, babysitting the younger sibling, that maybe they're not prepared in case there's some kind of an emergency?
Well, that's our job. That's always been our job as parents, to prepare our kids reasonably well. I mean, you can't prepare for absolutely every eventuality, but you teach your kids, here's a list of emergency numbers. You teach them if you're going to go outside, you have to look both ways before crossing the street, or don't cross the highway, that the traffic there is terrible. You can talk to anybody. You can't go off with anybody, never get in somebody else's car. It's always been our job to prepare our children, not just to be with them so they don't have to be prepared. I think it's more responsible to teach your kids and then step back and see how they're doing and step back a little further. And that's called the old saying is, you can't prepare the path for your child, so you have to prepare your child for the path and let grow. And free range kids, that's what we're doing. We're saying, I trust you on the path, let me just get you ready.
And be prepared. I was a scout. I was always prepared. Lenora Skenazy, founder of Free Range Kids, thanks a lot for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.